Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
We're talking about books that make you believe today. Now let me ask you this. Do you know what heaven smells like? Yes, angels do have a fragrance. More on that in a bit. Right now, I want you to imagine what the beyond is like. Is there a heaven? A hell? A universal place where we all go? Do we have a soul that carries on? Or maybe you don't believe in an afterlife at all. I mean, there really isn't any proof. Or is there? Our guest today knows what heaven smells like because she's been there. And she came back 3 times. It started with a horrific accident. Martha Brookhart Halda was dead. And while on the other side, she had experiences that led her to writing the book, The Fragrance of Angels, because she now has a message to share with the world. And you're going to want to hear this. Martha, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Desiree. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You bet. Let's start where all good stories start, at the beginning. And please only talk about what you feel comfortable with. You don't have to go into a lot of the deep details. I know people can find that out in your book. But can you tell us a bit about the accident?
Well, the accident was on my way to pick up my son from football practice. And it was a new drive for me. And I got sunblinded and went over little boulders, which broke the axle off of my car. And I went to nose-to-heel flips, and I got thrown out. And then a lovely, large expedition landed on top of me. And that's pretty much where it started.
Wow. And now, do you remember what happened? You've got bits and pieces, and then I know people came back and told you their perspectives after the accident as well.
I remember right prior to the accident, and I remember my car spinning and flipping, and I remember gripping my steering wheel as tight as I possibly could and just calling out, but not verbally, but inside me, like from the depth of my being, just screaming out, God, oh God, please help me. And then at that point, I got thrown out of the car, and I remember flying through the air. And then from that point on, I don't remember except for snippets. And then after the point where I had actually passed over. So at that point, I started to look down on my body as opposed to being in my body.
And let's talk about that. So you were outside of your body. What was that like, and was there anybody else there with you?
Well, first off, it was incredibly freeing, to tell you the truth. And at first, when I was out of my body, I remember laying on the dirt, and I could smell the dirt, and I could smell the air, which sounds weird to smell the air, but if you're conscious of it, it really is there every day. And then a shooting star started to come towards me. And as she got closer, I realized it was not a star at all, but it was an angel. And then I had her with me for most of my travels up into heaven and most of my review.
And so tell me about your time in heaven and your review.
So I did go through what most people consider what they've heard of from near-death experiences, NDEs, where you go through a tunnel, but it wasn't really a tunnel because the tunnel to me seems more contained, and I could see through it. I could see everything. So I went with her. She was telling me not to be worried, not to be afraid, that she was there with me. And as we were going, I was like shooting up into the sky. I was actually being told not from her, but from a knowledge inside me telling me that it wasn't my time. And I was starting to argue because I really wanted to see what I was seeing. Mm-hmm. And I was put into a ledge. It was sort of like a little tiny meadow. and I was laid there and she left, and it was just really super warm, beautiful, like a perfect mountain day after you've done some hiking and you're sitting there with an incredible view, except for the view there was this ledge that dropped thousands of feet. And at that point, I started to have my life review where I was shown some bits and some pieces of it, but it wasn't as intense. And I sort of felt like my angel was arguing my case for me. She was at a higher level where I couldn't see her, but she was arguing my case because she knew I wanted to stay. And she came back after a while, and at that point, we started to go further. And once we got further, then I was taken to what I call the Valley of Death. Just because that's what I was raised with, you know, my terminology in Episcopal Church.
Sure.
And it's interesting because the Valley of Death to me is, Halloween being tomorrow, so it sounds like it's like a scary type thing, but really not at all. Probably one of the most beautiful, stunningly gorgeous valleys I've ever seen. If I took every place I've been in the world and take its highlight and put it together into this valley, that's the extremeness of how the colors were. Everything was alive. There's if you look in a magnifying glass, or not a magnifying glass, gosh, what are those things in science class? Microscope.
Microscope?
Okay.
Okay.
A microscope, how you can see where everything's moving and wiggling around and in smaller details. Well, everything literally was at the cellular level where I actually found myself looking into the grass and going into the blades of grass, which sounds absurd when I'm describing it now, but it was incredible. And no one will get me to believe that it didn't actually happen because it was just so amazing. And the colors were the most intense. If you took the best Technicolor rainbow you've ever seen and you amplify it by the thousands, you'll come sort of close. If you take the most incredibly perfect breeze, you've ever had one of those days, usually when you're on vacation, some tropical place, and the breeze is just passing over you just perfectly, the perfect temperature, it was like that. The valley was incredibly large, like 3 football fields kind of put together. And the meadow was in the middle with flowers that would pop up, incredible trees, and then the most beautiful, stunning, majestic purple mountains in the background. And all of the colors sort of had their own life. And as I was sitting there thinking, this is spectacular, this is so perfect, the only thing that would make it perfect, even more perfect, would be if there was a waterfall. And all of a sudden, molecules from each component of the valley came together, and produced a waterfall in the middle of the valley.
So it was like your own personal version of heaven. It was you in a way you were creating it or inspiring it?
Do you know, I think that, because I really don't know, I only know what I saw and what I experienced. But there was music that was playing that I felt as if it was angels kind of at choir practice. They were up above, and it sounded like there was thousands of them. I couldn't see any of them, but I could hear them. The music was incredibly comforting. And everything in the meadow was what my view of beauty is. The music was my view of what was perfectly comforting. And I can't imagine that, say, perhaps my sons, that their choice of music would be the same as my choice.
Right.
Nor would my choice be the same as my parents'. So I don't know if we all create our own heaven, or if it is so perfectly put together. I mean, if you consider the masterpiece of the world that we live in, the idea that people say that there's nothing there, that we're in charge of our own thing, there's no greater divine, I can never see that any longer, because I see things differently now. I see them in the more detail, literally and more in a scientific detail. If you look at the precision of a sunflower, mathematically how it's put together, they are amazing. If you look at the precision of a seashell, how they're put together. If you look at something horrific like a tornado and the energy and how it's all put together, it's such precision that I can't imagine that it would just happen randomly. And so because I believe in the divine and everything's created like that, it's easy for me to say this divine probably can create our own perfection of our heaven for each of us individually.
Wow. That's amazing. And you had a guide, your angel, you describe her as a her. Was she your guardian angel, or did you know who she was?
Do you know, I didn't know her from Adam. I didn't believe in angels at all. To me, angels were like little bookstores, those little cheruby things.
Right.
I was raised with them, certainly, in the Bible and in history and stuff like that, but they weren't something that to me, it was the God the Father and the Holy Ghost, the Holy what? Because it wasn't a tactile thing, and nor did I consider angels to be like a true tactile type. Like they're there, they're real. They were just a little kind of like a cartoon character. But once I saw her, and I say her, but truly, she looked like, when someone's in the adolescence, if you look at them one way, they look female. You look at them another way, they look male.
Sure, slightly androgynous.
Yes, so she was very androgynous. And I just say her because she was wearing a gown, and the gown was absolutely incredible. It was like a raw silk, and it was so brilliant and so bright, almost like a silver, with the most incredible embroidery in the chest plate. And because she was wearing a gown, that's why I say female, but literally she was just right there where she was just androgynous.
Gotcha.
I considered her to be my guardian angel because she was there for me. She was incredibly comforting, telling me that it was going to be okay. And I also felt like she had my back. Like she was, I literally felt as if when I was in the first ledge of review, that she went to argue my case for me.
So she was your advocate.
Yes.
But in the end, you decided to come back for your sons, right?
Yes, because after being in the valley of death and having a full life review, where literally I had to experience any transgression, anything where I had actually hurt someone and not asked for forgiveness. I had to actually see it like a little mini screen, but I had to feel how I made them feel. And that is very, very tough to do. After my accident, when I got home, I actually would go to junior high youth groups and talk to them, because to me, that's kind of the age where you can inadvertently hurt people and not ask for forgiveness. As you get a little bit older, if you're hurting someone, you're more cognizant of it, so you're more aware. So it's like almost a purposeful thing, and hopefully you have the wherewithal, the guts, the emotional integrity that you would ask that person for forgiveness. But at a junior high age, you don't really. So I would go to those youth groups and talk with the kids and let them know that, when you're inadvertently hurting someone, you need to ask for forgiveness, because it's so incredibly harsh to have to feel how you made them feel. So I would say to them, either if you have the guts, go to that person directly and ask them for forgiveness, or at least ask God for forgiveness. Because I only had to feel the way that when I hurt someone, if I had not asked for forgiveness. But then I also got to feel how it was when I shared love with somebody. That is amazing. Because you don't, if you think about the way that we feel how we can be so excited and so filled with joy when someone makes us feel loved. But when you're actually giving love to someone, you're not really thinking about it on that level. But when you get to feel how you made them feel, it's amazing. So I went through that, and then at a certain point, it was almost like, okay, well, now you really need to come argue your case. So I went with my angel again, and we went up higher into the darkness. We went through all of the astral skies, which were incredible, the gases and the stars and everything into a much darker sky.
So it was like you were going into the universe, like
exactly
into the cosmos. Okay.
Like going through the cosmos, and then up higher, and I ended up meeting the Trinity. And I say it's the Trinity because as soon as I met it, that's what I felt. So I didn't see like a God sitting on a throne or anything like that. I saw a white sphere of energy, very similar to looking at the sun. Mm-hmm. The sun is yellow, and this entity, divine entity, was white, like brilliantly white. And I knew it to have the epitome of knowledge, all earth and all world knowledge, and also the most love. And so I started to argue my case there. And I was told that it was not my time. And so I was just like a bratty little kid arguing with their parents, trying to plead my case, like I wanted an ice cream cone or something. I wanted to stay in heaven. And finally, the Trinity said, kind of like reverse parental psychology, well, Martha, I know that the most important thing to you is your boys. So I am going to share with you what will happen to your boys if you go back. What that would be like. And I was, oh, great. And he showed me, and it was not going to be as nice. We had a very, very nice life. My husband provided a country club life for us, and they didn't need for anything, but they were no longer going to have that life, but it wasn't going to be bad. And then the Trinity showed me, I'm going to share with you, Martha, what will happen to your boys if you stay here in heaven. And when I saw that, it was horrific. Oh. It was like there was no leadership for them. There was no parental guidance. And they just dropped off to like the ugly things in life. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I saw that, then I was instantly begging the Trinity, please, please, I want to go back. I want to go back. If I can go back, then I promise I will tell. I will tell of your beauty. I will tell of your love. What message should I take back? And then I was told that the most important thing that we are to do and share in our life is to give and share and express love. It's our most important gift.
And so that is the core message. That is
the message is to give and share and express love whenever possible. Because without it, we're nothing.
Right. So you came back, and that was hard too. Can you talk about what it was like when you came back? And also, I want to get to where you are today because you have two beautiful grown sons, and you even have a granddaughter now. So if you don't mind, yes. And yeah, talk about coming back, how difficult that was, and where you are today.
Okay, so I was in a coma for 2 months. It was a drug-induced coma for my body to be able to heal because of all of the injuries that I had. And then when I woke from the coma, I can remember actually waking from the coma, because when I was in the coma, and I want people to hear this because this is important for if you ever have anyone that you care about that's in a coma.
Okay.
And some doctors agree and some doctors do not agree. But when they're in the coma, they can actually hear what you're saying when you're in the room. So I can actually remember my mother talking over me and talking to someone. It may have been my sister. And telling them, well, she's supposed to be a mental vegetable, so we need to figure out where we're going to put her, who's going to take care of her, how this is going to happen. And they're looking at me, and I'm just laying there, just looking like I'm sleeping in the coma. And inside, I'm screaming, no, no, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
Oh.
And I knew when people were in the room because each person, we all have our own body scent. And so I would know that that scent was a particular person. And when they were trying to lift me out of the coma for me to wake, I wouldn't wake. I knew who was there in the room by their scent, but I was waiting for my sons to come. And when they got to the door, I could smell them. And I rolled my head and opened my eyes and started blowing kisses to them. I couldn't talk or anything because I had a tracheotomy. But when I rolled my head and opened my eyes and started blowing kisses, then the doctor was like, okay, her brain is so much more together, because I had a skull fracture. They knew I was going to be at a better state than what their prognosis had been, because of the fact that I would recognize them and start blowing them kisses. And then, so that was a 2-month coma. Then from there, then I was transferred to another hospital, Sharp Rehab, where I spent a month there learning to use the wheelchair I was supposed to live in. And then I came home right before Christmas, and it was driving me nuts because I used to decorate stores for Christmas, and I had some wonderful friends that came while I was in the coma and decorated the house for Christmas, so it would be, the boys would have that, it would give some comfort. But I was immediately thinking, what can I give them for Christmas? What can I do? What can I do? And there was, I couldn't dial a phone. I literally did not know how. And I obviously couldn't drive. So I thought, well, I'm going to take steps. So on Christmas Eve, down the hallway, I put my hands on the walls, on each side of the walls, and pushed the wheelchair away. And then I took 5 steps and told my boys, that's their Christmas present, and that mommy will walk again. It was the best Christmas present ever.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. And your boys today, I mean, tell us about today, because this happened quite some time ago, too.
Yeah,
right?
I believe that they were 11 and 14, and they are now 30 and 33. And they are both really excellent young men. I'm very proud of both of them. One lives here, like half an hour away from me, and he just made me a grandma.
Congratulations.
And thank you. Actually, not just. She's going to be a year in November.
Wow.
And she's just joy-filled and beautiful and smiley and happy. And I keep telling him how lucky he is, because she has no colic or anything. And she's adorable. And then my younger son lives in Rhode Island, and he is got a beautiful honey that I just adore, and they're very, very happy. And I work in an industry because I've found from the whole experience that when we go to heaven, we take 2 things with us. We take, number 1, our integrity, which happens to be one of the most important things that anyone can have, your integrity. And the second thing is you take your memories. The rest of the stuff, the crap, it stays here. And I really think that that's what God and the Trinity meant, the divine, whatever you want to call him, the agape. I don't follow a specific religion. I am a Christian, but I'm not like I have to go to a certain church or anything like that.
Sure.
So I have no problem with what anybody wants to call it, as long as it means that it's a greater, the orchestrator of our world. And the most important thing that they said was love. And I think that we experience our most intense love when we are enjoying life and enjoying the people that we really, really care about. So I work in an industry selling vacation ownership, which is timeshare, which I know sometimes people are like, you sell timeshare because it's got a negative connotation, but I work for an excellent company. And my joy, my happiness, is I talk to people about their best experience, their happy times in life.
Sure, I can see that.
So I'm definitely one of those people where I want to go and experience and do as much in life as possible. I don't want to live my life in a box full of fear, which I could be like that, because oftentimes when people go through bad accidents, that kind of thing, or something horrific happens in their life, then they're afraid. And there's nothing to be afraid of. What's the worst thing that can happen to you? You're going to die. Well, my thought is bring it on. I can't wait for that to happen. So
that sounds like a very amazing place. So yes.
Seriously, if I knew that I could get there, if I made it happen myself, I would do it. But in the religion I was raised in, there wasn't a promise of that. So I'm not willing to take the risk. Mm-hmm. And besides, I'm having too much fun here right now.
It sounds like you are. Now, your book, the title of your book is The Fragrance of Angels. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask you, what does an angel smell like?
Wow. So I tried to put it into an analogy, which is only memories, my memories. And I have a fantastic memory of going through the rose garden down in San Diego, Balboa Park, on a really hot day. My grandmother had come in from Idaho, and I was little. So I was at the lower level where all the roses were, and it was hot. And the warmth of the rose, the scent that was coming out, that was heaven to me.
Wow.
When I lived in Kauai, and the plumerias and the pikakis and the ginger and all of that, that is like it. A tea rose is like it. It's basically, it's a flower that's in bloom, and it's being tempted by the warmth around it. I have difficulty finding it, and then one day I was actually in the mall and walking through, and I stopped and went, oh my gosh, I smell heaven. And I did a whole track around a beauty counter looking for the particular perfume, and I found one, and this one it's gardenia and tuberose. And I kid you not, when I smelled this, nothing was going to stop me. I had to find exactly which one it was. And that's what I wear these days.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I can smell it, even though I'm talking to you through the microphones. It's like I can smell it through the radio.
That's right. You know, it's interesting because often when I'm at work, people I don't know will walk by and they go, oh, you smell so good. I've actually had men say, you smell like Kevin. And I'm like, exactly.
You're like, yes, I do.
I literally do.
That's excellent. Okay, we're running out of time here. This has been such an incredible, inspiring conversation, Martha. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everyone where they can find your book and if they want to find you online, social media, etc.?
Well, I'm on Facebook, and I don't do much about my book on Facebook, but I do have a blog, and my blog is The Taste of Eternity, because that was originally what I was going to name the book, because when I was first passing over, I kept hearing this, not near death, but a taste of eternity, not near death, but a taste of eternity. But that title doesn't transfer well into very many other languages, and truly the fragrance of angels was really a key for my experience. So A Taste of Eternity is my blog, and then you can find The Fragrance of Angels on Amazon and in many major bookstores, but definitely on Amazon.
Okay.
And right now it's out in English, German, Czech, and Slovakian.
Oh, fantastic. We love that. We love anything that has an international flair because we have listeners from every point on the globe. So that's excellent. Thank you again, Martha, for joining us. This has been such a pleasure.
Desiree, thank you so much for calling me and setting this up. It's been a great, fun time.
You bet. You bet. Once again, my name is Desiree Duffy. Find out more about Books That Make You on booksthatmakeyou.com. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, enjoy all the books that make you who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.